So it's an absolute pleasure to have a brother who's working so hard through his creativity to make sure that this information, this message is delivered loud and clear. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam. How's everyone? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely a delight to have you, brother. Finally joining me on the show this morning. I've tried so hard over the last couple of years.
It's been a long time coming. It has been a very long time coming. But thank you so much. It is a pleasure to join you in the studio.
Mashallah, brother. Now, folks, if you've just tuned in, I'm speaking to no other than Mizan, the poet. Now, I know a lot of people across the country are very, very aware of his poetry. It's very profound, it's very powerful, and he does not hold back. Believe me, he does not hold back. Raising the issue of so many topical issues that are impacting the Muslim community and the human world, really. Brother, tell me a little bit about yourself, because I know your work and I've been following your work for many a year, and you know I've been saying, brother, when are you going to be free? When are you going to come and join my show? So I'm so pleased that you're here with us this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, for the listeners, Shemiza has been trying to get me on the show for a very long time, and this is a long time coming. So I'm glad that I finally got the chance to be on your show and be interviewed. Yeah, basically, I would describe myself as a creative advocate for social justice and human rights.
Mashallah.
So I use creativity and poetry to create awareness about social and important issues, and that really comes from my own experiences as an activist, because I started off educating myself about what's going on around the world through activism. And it's through that and through my experiences that I came across conscious creativity, like conscious rap, and therefore spoken word as well. And you're looking at, maybe this is going back to like 2006. So I started dabbling in spoken word back then, but that was on and off. And I really took it seriously in 2012. And because of my experiences, because of my self-education about what's going on around the world and how issues affect people, most of my poetry creates issues about important social and political issues, right? So the thing is that in that journey, I came across issues that affect women mainly. And even though I'm a man, it was a bit difficult for me to kind of get into that area, because in my communities, it's something that is seen as taboo to talk about domestic violence, to talk about issues that affect women from a male's perspective. But I kind of got into it because I wrote a track about honor killing called Death Before Dishonor. And I wrote that because a counsellor from Barnet, I forgot her name, but there was a counsellor from Barnet got in touch with me saying that, you know what, your poems are powerful, and why don't you write something about honor killing? And at that time, I was thinking about writing something specifically to do with that anyway. And what happened was, I'd done a lot of research, and I wrote and I watched Dia Khan's documentary called Banaz, who was one. Yeah, sorry?
That was a very intense documentary, and that really did make a lot of people sit up and actually take this issue of honor killing as something very, very significant. And the thing is, it's but there is no, I have to point out, there is no honor in honor killing. Let's just make that clear. So I'm really glad that kind of inspired you to, I mean, did it inspire you? And how did it make you feel when you saw that?
I thought it was a very powerful documentary, so I'd like to give a shout out to Dia Khan live on radio. She was an amazing filmmaker. Even though some people do have opinions about the types of films that she makes, I think that Banaz was a very powerful documentary.
Extremely.
It was sad. It was sad to see that, because the inhumanity, the barbarity of what happened to her just for making her own choice, it was a wake-up call. So my spoken word, Death Before Dishonor, was based on Banaz's story. And then what happened was, after when I came out with a video, a lot of charities got in touch with me. The Sharon Project, Polly from the Sharon Project got in touch with me, and then we decided to work a bit more close together. And because of that, I decided to educate myself more about what's going on in regards to women's rights and domestic violence and stuff like that. So
I just love the fact that you wanted to educate yourself, and that's just remarkable, the fact that inspired you so much that you actually went out. And how was that possible? How did you go out and educate yourself
I mean, the thing is, everything about me was I had to self-educate myself.
Right.
So my politics, my political views, and my views on certain social issues, these aren't taught in school. I mean, not especially when I was growing up. These issues weren't taught in school, so I had to educate myself. So I'm no stranger to educating myself. I'll go onto YouTube, listen to the lectures, go to Waterstones or Amazon and buy the books. So the thing is, with issues to do with women's rights and domestic violence, I just had to do what I'd done politically, which is just go out there and just get the books.
Right.
And so I've got a ton of books on women's rights and domestic violence and gender-based violence and all these kind of things. And I'm continually educating myself. And I think the most important thing is, Shemiza, what I want to mention is that this is a very important subject that you're covering in your show, right? Domestic violence is a very important subject. However, it's like in our community, I feel as though if you talk about that subject, then that's it. Like, a lot of people think that that's the only issue that affects women in our community.
Right.
And the thing is that I think what's more important, not what's more important, but what's also important is that we need to create awareness about other forms of violence against women. So, for example, things like human trafficking, the adult industry, and I'm going to say this, and I know this is a very taboo subject, but as a Muslim male, I think the Muslim community is the prime community to end things like pornography, and I think that's something that we need to create more awareness about, because that industry is premised on violence against women, and that industry is something that negatively affects all young people.
I'm so glad that you've actually raised this awareness. None of my shows have ever picked this topic up. And I have in the studio Sister Miriam Grillo, who is an artist. She's also a psychotherapist. She's very passionate about working with women impacted by domestic violence. She's worked very, very actively across the town with interfaith artwork as well, and we're going to be talking about a fantastic project that is called This Is Freedom, which is actually expressing the voices and the narrative and giving voices to survivors and hidden victims of domestic violence. Miriam is in the studio. Miriam, brother Mizan, have I pronounced your name correctly? Because I know you as Mizan the poet.
Yeah, Mizan, that's
okay.
fine.
MashaAllah. So, Sister Miriam, you're listening to Brother Mizan, and your thoughts on basically some of the things that he's mentioned. I just have to applaud him as a man and what he's representing here.
I just want to say Assalamu alaikum, brother, and it's lovely to hear what you have to say, for you to share your views, but also to speak about the hidden issues within the community that nobody does speak about, and to actually raise them and to challenge people to begin to speak about them, to begin to look at them, because they are issues.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Miriam, for that. And we're going to be talking to Miriam very, very shortly about this amazing, amazing program called 16 Days of Activism. And Brother Mizan, tell me more, your passion, your drive. Has it inspired other men to take the lead in kind of raising awareness of domestic and gender violence?
Well, it's kind of opened the door. So I wouldn't say it's taken the lead so far, because it's still, for me, my experience is that a man talking about it so publicly is still something that comes as a shock to certain people.
Okay.
But it's something that the activist in me hasn't really let me stop. Like, in terms of, it hasn't kind of made me feel bad or made me go depressed. What I've done is made me use that to turn that into a more positive form of energy and make me go at it even more. So along with the spoken word tracks, what I've actually done is I've actually started to organize events myself to create more awareness about violence against women. So I've done one on March the 27th in the House of Commons, where we spoke about what men are doing to challenge gender-based violence. So I had a police officer there, I had a youth worker there, I had someone from White Ribbon Campaign come and speak. I spoke about creativity and how creativity can be used to end gender-based violence from a male's perspective. And on December the 12th, I've got another event coming up in City Hall called Ending the Violence Against Women and Girls. And again, we're going to have male and female practitioners and survivors speaking about what are the causes of violence against women and girls and how can we end it. But what's important is that in this area of things, in my promotion of the events, I have found out that a lot of people are very, it strikes a chord, especially this title, a man creating awareness about violence against women and girls. It strikes a chord because I've come across a lot of men saying, what about men? And, a lot of women saying, what about men as well?
Yes.
So I've had to address that and say that, look, just because it's titled that way, it doesn't mean that that's what it's going to be about. And I've had to explain that the issue is to look at the factors, look at all the cases of violence against women and girls, learn from look at all the factors, and then use the factors, use what we learn to create educational material to make sure that when it comes to relationships, it doesn't happen to anyone. Because they are right. I mean, majority of this stuff affects women. But now what you're seeing is that this stuff is starting to affect men, and it's starting to affect LGBTQ communities and trans women and trans men as well, and all that kind of stuff. So, but it broadly affects women, right? Gender-based violence. So what can we learn from that? What can we learn? Why is it that, this affects this gender? But what are the principles? What are the factors can we learn? And then take out of that and then apply to everyone. So in order to make sure that it doesn't happen to anyone else, regardless of your gender. So that's how I explain it to them.
Wonderful. Brother, I find this really quite remarkable, the fact that, your poetry has now become a really proactive form of activism, that you're actually bringing people together from all cultures and backgrounds. And how has the Muslim community actually reacted and responded to these conversations that you're leading, the practice that you're leading here? And actually, have you had any connections with the mosques in turn? Because I'm going to be joined by a very delightful sister by the name of Maria Zafar, who is part of Islamic Reliefs. She's a campaigner for them, and she's actually going to try and develop more conversations in the masjids, and also as part of the khutbahs about gender-based violence.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's with the mosques. It's, how can I put it? So basically, I originally wanted this event to be held in a mosque. The reason why it was held in City Hall is because I found it very difficult to get a venue. And that is because a lot of the mosques that I came across, that I approached, did not want that kind of attention, because it implies that, these kind of misogyny and systems of patriarchy kind of exist in mosques, right? Okay. Whereas I saw it as a proactive mechanism for mosques to get involved and start developing these kind of conversations within mosques. But the interesting thing is that I do have some mosque people coming to my event. So I do think that when it comes to this, we are waking up, and mosques are taking things like domestic violence seriously. But just to give you an example of how the perception has changed. So when I started getting involved in these kind of issues around 2013, a lot of my male practicing friends, some of them have found it very, they found it awkward that I was, as a man, I was getting into women's rights issues. And one of my close friends actually said to me that he feels as though I'm stepping on his manhood. Like me talking about women's rights, I'm oppressing his manhood. Wow. Now the thing is that was because of one track that I came up with, where I speak about the experiences of women from the perspective of a woman, right? Yeah. Now the thing is, he heard that track and he found it profound, but he found it oppressive towards his masculinity. Now then I came out with Death Before Dishonor, and basically, again, the same conversation happened again, and he found it a bit uncomfortable. But what happened was, just to end this off, I've finished recording a new track called She Asked For It. And this track is about critiquing rape culture and victim blaming, right? So what I do is, when I record a track, I send it to my friends just to get them to hear it. So I send it to this brother, and he actually responded back by saying that track was amazing. And he actually said that, he would like to discuss the ideas in that track. So I met up with him, and we had a good conversation about violence against women, rape. And this same brother who said that I'm oppressing his manhood ended the conversation by saying that, he said that, may God reward me for what I'm trying to do. So that was a very profound conversation that I had, and I think that's that's the trajectory in regards to which the conversation is going within the Muslim community.
MashaAllah, your creative consciousness is definitely making a profound leap in many people's minds and hearts. Inshallah, may it continue to create this change that is greatly, greatly needed within our community, not just within our community, but overall across the globe, inshallah. Now, in the studio...
Thank you so much.
No, brother, it's been an absolute pleasure. Now, I'm sure everybody's like, oh, we want to hear his poetry, we're going to hear his poetry. But we're really actually, it's quite a long piece, mashallah. We do have it on the system and we are going to play it. But brother, you have to come in the studio and you have to perform it live. When's that going to happen? When are you coming to Luton?
You know what, we'll definitely continue this conversation a lot more, and we'll definitely figure out a date where I can come in, because I would have loved to have come into the studio today and performed and just really just had this long conversation with the community and meet everyone. But inshallah, that will happen soon. So just watch this space.
How can our listeners get in contact with you? How can they follow your work? And when is you've got an event happening on the 12th of December? How can folk get in contact with you regarding that?
So on Facebook, if they just type in Mizan the Poet, M-I-Z-A-N the Poet, they'll find me on Facebook and they can get in contact with me via that. On Twitter, the handle is at Mizan the Poet as well, or they can just email me on Mizan at mizanthepoet.org.uk.
Fantastic. Now, it is National Charity Week, and it's also today is a Make a Gift Day, or Make a Gift Day to give to somebody. What would you give to our listeners? What would you like to offer them in sort of words or so forth?
You know what? I think what I would say is, in this culture where everything is, where capitalism is using technology to make us buy products and make everything very kind of inauthentic, I would say, look, one of the things we can do is educate ourselves about our religion and about the world that we are living in. And that is one of the things that I would like to give to the world, the idea that knowledge is power. I would wish for everyone to take at least half an hour out of the day. I know that everyone's got a busy day. Take half an hour out, go read a book, go read something very educational about the world that you're living in, because without knowledge, without educating ourselves, we can't have these debates about the important issues, and without these debates, we can't change the world positively. So basically, I see knowledge as a way of making the world a better place. And what does Allah say? Allah says that Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change within themselves, and that can only be done via knowledge. So I would say, you know what, guys, go get a book. Please don't say that. Please don't think I'm saying this in a patronizing way. I'm not. This is an advice to myself first. Go take some time out, read about the issues, read about the issues that are affecting us, and let's do something about it collectively as a community.
MashaAllah, wonderful, wonderful words of advice and great wisdom there from Mizan the Poet. We are heading off to a break. I just want to say thank you so very much for your time this morning. Have a wonderful day and just keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing.
Thank you so much, Shemiza, and thank you to everyone else on the show as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was Brother Mizan the Poet. So assalamu alaikum, brother, from us. And inshallah, after the break, I'm joined by two awesome ladies. They're in the studio now. It is no other than Maria Zafar and Maria.